Intern and J. Stevens, watching documentaries so you don't have to. 104.7 The Cave.
I'm Mike the Intern. That's Jay Stevens. And we're here for Dark Side of the Stream.
Intern's out there grooming.
Episode 228 this week was Jay's pick on Netflix. It's called Sons of Ecstasy. It's a crazy, good story.
Sammy the Bull, first of all.
We'll see how personal Jay and I want to get about this drug. But before we do that, it definitely talks about the ecstasy boom that happened in the early 2000s, and if you were in high school or college at that point, or after, in some people's cases, chances are you probably may have or tried that drug in the realm of years between early 2000s. I'd say about
club scene.
I'd say about
15.
It'd be about the end of it, but. Chances are, if you did that drug through that period of time, it probably went through these guys' hands.
These guys were moving a lot of pills.
I mean, it was I think they were clocking 500,000 a week. It was over 30,000 pills
that
a week.
Euro kid, this is where the stuff's made. Amsterdam and stuff, they make all this stuff.
That was the connection. But what's crazy about this story is it's like a part two of a criminal life. If they had just done, because the story is it's not just about him, but the fact that this guy who had been a soldier, an enforcer, basically everything that you can be in a mafia family without being the Don.
Yeah.
Like this guy did it all. He had already served his time for killing.
Right.
And then gets out.
Witness protection program.
Yeah, then gets out, and his kid's like, "Hey, Dad, I got this idea. You want to go into business together?" And what they did together, I could never see myself teaming up with my children doing something like this.
Yeah, that's one thing for sure. And also, it's like you already got off pretty easy for the life that you led. I would just hide in the shadows from there on out.
Some people just don't care. Some people just ride the line.
You got out. You got out alive. B, you got out for barely doing any time for literally being like an enforcer for
multiple murders
mob
that the FBI knows about. That's
mob.
The thing.
Not some local gang. The mob.
But that's the thing. Like the FBI knew what they know about him, what they don't know about him. And
right. You know how many more things that he skated off on that he didn't get caught for?
Huge. But we'll talk about that next when we come back. Dark Side of the Stream, 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio, Dark Side of the Stream, episode 228. It's the Sons of Ecstasy on Netflix. And before we go any further in the story, I wanted to give a personal anecdote, and that is I was a very adventurous child, well, up until the fact that I had a kid, pretty much. But in late high school, early college, I was friends with a couple. And one of them was HIV positive, and they liked to party a lot. But because of his diagnosis, they had to be extremely careful, like with what they did. And obviously, the MDMA was their drug of choice. And so when I hooked up with him and hung out with him and found that out, I was like, oh my God. And this was way before. Like now, testing drugs is so common. It should be. With fentanyl in the world, like if you have teens in your life, you need to tell them it's not about what your choices. You cannot stop your kids from trying stuff. You just can't. Sorry, my parents were freaking amazing. There's nothing they could do to stop my brother and I from doing what we did. Nothing.
Yeah, kids
They didn't smoke around us. They didn't drink around us. They didn't do nothing.
Have open conversations.
The open
about
conversation should go as follows. You are going to be offered all kinds of stuff in your life, whether that be a line on a table or a pill or something to smoke.
Or a drink even.
Bottom line is this. If you do not trust that person with your life, you should not trust what they're giving you. On top of the fact that if you are going to go down that road and experiment with recreational drugs, get a tester. They are free. If they're not free, they only cost $1. But that really is the difference.
Where do you get a free
online,
tester?
dancesafe.org. dancesafe.org, and get a tester, test it. I don't care if you're going to Vegas to party with your buddies and someone buys a bag, test it. If you're at a show and someone hands you something, maybe it's a pill, test
old days, you would just eat it.
And that's what I've been telling my oldest for a long time is like, dude, you're going to get offered stuff. Here's the thing. If you want to do that, get it tested, test it. Please. I'm not going to try and stop you from doing what it is that you want to do and experiment, whatever it is. Now you're an adult. You make that choice. Test it. It's not like when I was a kid and someone handed me something and I took it and I was like, well, that was dumb. I didn't die. Fentanyl didn't exist when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I didn't have to worry about taking something from someone and being dead within 15 minutes. That is a real thing that happens all the time. So there's your disclaimer.
That's our PSA for the day.
There's your disclaimer. You can't stop anyone from doing what they want to do, but you can do it safely, and dancesafe.org is the place to do that. Back to what we were saying. So anyway, these guys were testing these things. So in the early 2000s, through the point where I eventually grew the up when I had a kid. We're going to have to bleep that one out, Tyler.
Mike.
We're going to mark that one up.
I think in all the years I've worked with Mike, that was the first time he slipped up and swore on the air.
Minutes? We're not, well, you bleep that. You better.
Wow, we go.
He's gonna forget. Well, he's gonna sell me. He's gonna sell me out. This kid's gonna sell me.
You're gonna get a call from the FCC.
This is his payback for the Chris Jericho thing. This is his payback.
You hold the cards now, Tyler.
And then I'm gonna have to fire Tyler for me getting in trouble, which is gonna be so sad
up on the
for
air.
everyone. But that's what's gonna happen if that thing goes over the air, Tyler. Anyway, when I grew up and decided to not be an idiot, up until that point, anytime I did that thing, it was as pure as it gets.
If you find pure MDMA, it's a wild ride.
It's a lot of fun. But then, you just like with any other hard drug, you can cut it. Sometimes people cut it with
And here
heroin.
in the Midwest, it's extremely impossible to find pure MDMA.
These days, I would put money on it that if someone gives you a pill, chances are what they're handing you is probably more than less speed or methamphetamine.
Probably some meth in that ecstasy you think you're taking.
It's not as common.
It's very hard to find good, clean drugs out here in the Midwest.
You got Molly and stuff like that, but again,
it's still not the same, man.
Not what it was like in the early 2000s, and I can attest to that 1,000% from my own experience. It's actually gotten worse. It's not like weed where it's gotten better. You see what they were smoking in 78 and you're like, dude, that looks awful. But I digress. Anyway, back to the story. These guys were part of that boom. I mean, hands down.
The club scene, it was kind of a whole movement where like techno was growing, the club scene, ecstasy hit the market, and boom. It was
like a cocaine explosion of the late 70s.
And now I missed all that because at that stage in my life, I was living in Hawaii and being a dad and singing in a rock and roll band at night. I wasn't part of that whole scene. So way later, I was always nervous about that drug too because I thought it was the love drug and this and that. I stayed away from it all. Wasn't until later in life that I tried that stuff.
You're cautious for what you say. You're cautious.
You like how that was a very extremely nice, soft way to enter the conversation.
Yeah, without putting yourself on blast.
I feel like. But I am a fan of can we just get back real quick about this documentary is about Sammy the Bull Gravano, former mob enforcer, who kind of ratted on the mob, but that's kind of a blurry line story. But anyway, it was in witness protection. His sons get involved with dealing ecstasy, and then he kind of gets involved.
Son was already doing it, and then they wanted to go bigger. Eastern European connection.
They wanted to go bigger,
and then they knew that if they really wanted to get the connections Daddy had to make it go further, that's the way.
There was a competitor in town who was the main man, and they wanted to try to take over his empire.
And Sammy the Bull was the one to tell him how to do that. But it wasn't just him and his kids. It was actually pretty much everyone in the family, and we'll talk about that next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Jay Stevens, Mike the Intern, back in the studio discussing Sons of Ecstasy on Netflix, episode 228, Dark Side of the Stream. I promise I won't say any more curse words, Tyler, so you don't have to search this entire video for that. But yeah, back to the story. Sammy the Bull's kids, he's out of prison. He's already gone through witness protection. He's kind of doing his own thing.
Opens a family restaurant. He opens a pool business.
He's in Arizona.
Yeah, he's in Arizona, yeah.
His kid, come to find out, is trying to do his own little entrepreneurship and gets his dad into the ecstasy game, where they basically they had about 10 plus successful years getting it before he started to get the indictments started to come down, which inevitably they all went down. And I think he got released 7-8 years ago, I think, after this. I mean, he was in for about 15.
I mean, can you imagine though these people, these FBI agents, they're like, are you kidding me? Like when they were like the tapping the lines and stuff, they must have been like, you got to be kidding me! Like Sammy is involved in this. Like after everything he got skated on,
but still, like, why wouldn't he? It's just like raising your kid.
Yeah,
if
and
you
also,
don't give them true consequences, and then on top of the fact that you already said it. You watch videos of this guy on YouTube and
very
TikTok,
likable
and he's
guy.
Extremely likable.
Even
he's
telling stories of killing people, he's a very likable guy.
But literally in that conversation, would then pull out a gun and put a bullet in your face.
Yeah,
that type of person that can disseminate that, where you and I are talking, and then all of a sudden I just pull out a gun and put it in your face.
No problem.
That's a psychopath, dude. That's crazy to me.
But also, if you know only one life, it's very hard to
that's what he was.
get out
That's
of
what
that
he
life.
did.
Yeah, so
I mean,
it's very hard because you know it so well, and you're like, I know this could be a very easy money flip for sure. You know.
Did you ever see the movie My Own Blue Heaven with Steve Martin and Rick Moranis?
My Own Private Idaho, I did see.
You should watch My Own Blue Heaven. It's the same kind of deal where he turns witness, state, and then starts running what is he doing? It's like a fencing thing.
Yeah, they run he ran a pool company. He does have a restaurant in Arizona, a little family restaurant, but it's all, I'm sure, money fronts, you know. And
I mean, who isn't? I mean, whether it's legal or illegal, everyone's trying to get the piece of it.
This radio station's probably money front for me and you. It's just the money part's not working out yet. The front's working out. The money part's not.
We're the ones cleaning the money.
Front.
We don't know where it comes out.
Right. Wait a minute. We're involved in the process.
Anyway, we're going to be back. Ultimately, they all got indicted, and it's just a crazy story.
It's a cool, fun story.
It's a good story. It's a good read.
Interesting characters.
We'll come back with our reviews next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Jay Stevens, Mike the Intern, back one more time. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 228.
Talking
Sons
drugs.
of Ecstasy. I'd give it a solid 3.5.
Yeah, I think so.
It was pretty good. It was short.
3.5 purple ecstasy pills. We'll give it.
Again, it was a crazy time. I never thought that at this point in my life, when I was growing up and you look back at like the disco era and you see like pictures of just people just zooted out of their mind, like just doing
and it came around
copious
in the 90s.
amounts of cocaine.
It'll probably come around again, another cycle.
And then later on in life, you're like, oh, and they're talking about the period of ecstasy in the early 2000s, and I'm like, oh, I was part of that.
You were part of that.
So I guess that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You were part of that.
I was part of that.
You were part of a scene, Mike. You were involved in the community.
Well, I've been part of multiple scenes.
You were involved in the community. What's the pick for next time?
Next week, we're going to do a documentary that is on Hulu. Jay's a big guy when it comes to the groupies, and the guys get all the chicks, those dudes are awesome. But what is it like to be one of those chicks?
To be a groupie?
What's it? Well, not necessarily just
Tyler
a groupie.
knows.
To be a rock and roll girlfriend, to be a wife of a lunatic, and that chick is Anita Pallenberg, and she was married to Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
And it's a documentary about her.
That's
and
amazing.
How she was amused for the Stones and all the crap that she put up
with. Yeah.
It's on Hulu, and
cool.
I can't wait to watch that side of the story.
Yeah, you get a girl's perspective.
Fire. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of perspective. Either way, we do this live on Facebook or YouTube every Thursday at 9. Play during my show at the same time, Jay at 6, and then you can download it as a free podcast from our 104.7 The Cave app.
You can bleep it at home.
Yeah.
If Tyler forgets to bleep it.
I don't know. We'll see. But either way, I'm Mike the Intern. That's Jay Stevens. Watch movies, so you don't have to. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.